welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we're going to be looking at doing a coffee, brown sugar and cream soap. Now we're going to be using some various different additives to this soap. So what we've got here first is some skimmed milk powder and titanium dioxide mixed together. Now because of the titanium dioxide and the milk, it's gone a bit thicker because I've let this really sit and absorb a lot of moisture. So that's quite a thick one there, and that's going to be one layer. We've then got some brown sugar dissolved in water, and I've added some gold mica to this just because I want to get a little bit more colour in there. Otherwise we'd get a lot of very similar colours in this, and we don't really want that. And then finally we've got some coffee. This is just some instant coffee dissolved in some water with a little bit of cocoa powder. Now cocoa powder is great in soap. You do smell a little bit of chocolate in there, you will smell a little bit of the coffee, but there's such a little amount going in there you really don't have to worry. So what I've got in here is some avocado, lard, palm kernel, castor, a little bit of coconut oil, and there is some oat bran oil in there as well. So it's quite a nice recipe this, and it's going to give me quite a long working time. What I first have to do is just divide this into 3 parts. Now the weight of this is, I think it's 160 grams per section. But what you will find is if you look at the side of the jug after this, the volume of the soap will actually be nearer 200 millilitres. Now the reason for that is basically oils are less dense than water. So water gram for gram is 1 gram of water to 1 mil of oil. But oils on the other hand, 1 mil of oil will be less than 1 gram. So you need more oil in volume for the same weight, if that makes sense to you. So basically you want to always work with weights when making soap because it's far more accurate than working in volumes, because they're slightly less accurate, and also it just makes life a lot more difficult. So always work in grams if you can, and if you're in America and you can work in grams, I would really suggest it because it makes working things like volumes, amounts of batter and stuff like that really easy, and there's very little conversion required. But whatever you work in, use weights rather than volumes. So let's get out of the way, and we're going to bring my mould in here. Now I love these acrylic moulds, but they can be a little bit finicky when it comes to demoulding. So I'll show you a trick later that we use for demoulding from acrylic moulds. But first things first, let's get our colorants into here. So let's just get our milk and titanium dioxide into here. Get as much of that out as we can and give that a bit of a stir. We are going to stick blend these in as well because we do want to make sure that we've got everything in there. And then we're going to pop it onto here, and we're going to add our lye. But what we'll do is we'll use the master batch solution, but I have to add additional water into here. So I pop it onto the scales, and I'm just going to add my water into here and just squeeze it straight into there. And this is the great thing about working with a master batch solution, is because you don't have to worry too much about your one-to-one solution. You can add different liquids, different oils, different additives into your oil like this, and then just add however much master batch solution you need. So this is a really great way, really easy way of just making this soap, and putting additives like this in it. They're mixed in water. I'm not worrying too much about the water they're mixed in because it's fairly insignificant, and then I roughly know what's gone into the each one of those jugs. I just add the remaining water that I need into each one of those, and then we're just going to weigh our master batch solution into each one of these. So I've got my coffee one, and this is going to be our bottom layer. I've got my master batch solution weighed off there for each one, and I'm going to weigh into each jug using this pipette. Is really handy. So these are available on Amazon, but what I do is I weigh my bottle of master batch on the scale, and I use a pipette like that to transfer things across. So you can do it this way, and you can transfer from here into here, but it's a better way if you actually put your master batch onto the scales like this, and then tear that out, And then what we're going to do is weigh from the scale into the jug. And the thing that you do is basically it'll tell you the reverse number. So it'll say, let's say you need 30 grams, you'll weigh out minus 30 grams. It's the same thing, you're just removing weight rather than adding weight. So I just use this pipette to give myself a nice easy way of it, which means I don't have to weigh out all of my master batch solution. I can make one big batch of master solution and then just weigh from there into there, and it just makes life a lot easier. So it takes a few of these and you can get various sizes of them. They're relatively hard, so if you do have some hand issues, this may not be the thing for you, but if you've got a good grip on you and you can squeeze, this is a brilliant way of getting your master batch lye into your jug. It's just a really nice way of doing it. So I think we've got my last little bit coming in here. Let's squeeze this bit in. There's always a degree of flex in soap recipes. You have a super fat to take care of any excess lye that you may slightly overpour, or if you underpour your lye, you're just going to have a higher super fat. So we don't have to be uber accurate, but we do want to get somewhat accurate. So you can see here I'm just dripping in until I get the weight I need on my scale front there. So that looks like 45.6 grams, and I squeeze all of that into there and then move that away into a little pot, and we'll crack on with getting this mixed together. So I've got my mould coming in here, and I'm just going to pop my stick blender and give it a burp so we have no air in the stick blender bell itself. Attach the top here and then give this a good whiz. Now, we don't have to be too careful about getting this to emulsion. We do want it to get into trace. Additives can sometimes do funny things with your soap, so you do want to just make sure that you're not over blending it, and you want enough viscosity left in the soap that it'll pour and it'll flatten, it'll kind of self-level, but you don't want it too watery that's going to take forever to set up. Although I do always say that it's worth getting to emulsion, pouring and allowing it to come up to the right trace or the right texture that you need for your soap of its own accord, rather than trying to force it. So what we're going to do is just give this a little stir here and get this poured into our mould. We don't need to save any of this for the top, so we're just going to scrape that out and get every little bit on here. So just get all of those last bits out, scrape it all in. Now, if you are a little bit thicker than this and you find that it's not actually settling down as you would like it to, rather than banging the mould, you can just shake the mould from side to side, and that will actually help level your mould a little bit less aggressively than banging. Although if it is at a super thick texture, sometimes banging is the only thing you can do. And then we're just going to leave this now to set up, and we'll come back once it's set up for the next part. So I have let this set up, and you can see there that we're getting very little movement. It's still quite shiny, so you do want to wait for some of that shine to disappear. But we're going to do our second layer here. So what I'll do is I'll just run through very quickly the setup of making this next layer, and I'll stop the speed up just before we pour it, and I'll show you what we do next. So what you may notice here as we go through it is that this texture is a little bit thicker. We've got sugar in here, we've got brown sugar in here, and that is actually going to cause this to speed up a little bit. But we've got a nice firmness there, but I still don't want this to break through the surface. So what do? We use our spatula to break the fall of the soap. Now what I do is I just rest that against the edge of my soap mould, and because I've got quite a nice liquidness to my soap, it's not too gloopy, I can pour it onto the back of my spatula, and I can do it quite quickly because I know everything is set up. I'm just going to allow that to flood across the surface of my soap, and then once I've got that done, I can scrape the rest of the jug out there, get all of my soap into the mould, and then allow this layer to set up. So in exactly the same way, except we've just got that slight little modification of pouring the soap over the spatula to avoid it breaking through the surface of the layer below it. And as before, we're just going to speed up now, get this next layer setting up. We're going to bring in our white layer here, get the lye solution added, whizzed up, and then poured back over the top. And we're doing exactly the same thing. All layers like this are really easy. You just have to treat them quite carefully, quite gently. Keep the viscosity low so you've got a lot of pourability. Use your spatula to break the fall of the topmost layer, and my second layer there was even kind of looser than the first layer, but by using this technique of allowing the soap to fall onto the spatula very slowly at first, and then you can start to speed up once you've got that kind of going there, it just means you still get lovely straight layers because you're allowing gravity to do the work of making the layer straight for you, and also you are allowing the soap to fill all of that mould without having to push things down and press things down or stuff like that. So let's just clean this up, get the lid on, and let this saponify overnight. So that is our soap ready to go, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this to set up overnight so that we have a full saponification for 24 hours. After that 24 hours is completed, I'm then going to pop the soap into the freezer. By popping it into the freezer, it's going to allow me to release the mould, the soap from the mould a lot easier than if I just try and get it out straight after saponification. So we'll get this to saponify, get it frozen, and I'll come back and show you how easy freezing a soap after saponification means you can get it out of an acrylic mould. So we're back and it's 2 days later and I've got the soap out of the freezer. As you can see on the top here, it is absolutely frozen. Look at that, fabulous. Now I've got a little bit of soda ash on the top here, but that will come off with a little bit of, we'll just use the planer for that. We've got some nice colours going on there. Let's get it out of the mould. So the thing with acrylic moulds is they can stick to the sides of the soap unless you line them or you do this trick. So I'm going to take my little bolts off here. And then look how easy this comes apart. Look at that. So anyone that has an acrylic mould and struggles to get the soap out, look how easy that has just come off. Now the bottom is a little bit stuck, but I do need to leave this soap probably another 12 to 14 hours because I want this to become unfrozen. So you can see here, it's stuck to the bottom there. If I let that come back up to room temperature and acclimatise, that will come off really easily. And onto the cut. This is just a very simple cut. We're going to cut this into 4 pieces and we'll have a look and we'll see exactly what's going on inside our bar. So this has come back up to room temperature. I've got a little bit of, I'd probably put a little bit more mica in to get a little bit more variation in that middle layer. But actually when it's cut, you do see that middle variation a little bit more. So let's just cut off an end here and I will squirrel that bit away. Hopefully you didn't see too much of that. Let's cut a proper bar and see what we've got going on the inside here. Again, if you want to add some more fragrance oil to this, you can do. A coffee fragrance oil would work really nicely in here. If you're adding anything with vanillin, you have to remember that you are going to get a lot of discoloration with that. So you have to factor that in to your design, and maybe you fragrance the bottom one with vanillin. Now look at that. That's really interesting. That shows you exactly how the bottom colour is going to darken. So you can see there we have got variation in them and it's lovely, and that bottom one is really going to darken up and become a lot more coffee-esque. So that is our soap, and what we're now going to do is just let those set up for a few days. Look how wonderfully that's set together. So doing it this way you really get a nice bond, and the next step is we're going to add some stamps to our soap. But I do know some of you enjoy soap cutting, so I'm going to cut another couple of bars here just to show you that. Now you can use a knife for this, you don't need a bar cutter. This is just a very old one that I have. It's an old workhorse, I keep having to fix it, but it's one of those, it's kind of like it's like a second leg. I absolutely love it. Let's take one more slice off of here and then we'll move on to stamping. And just before we move on with stamping these, I want to bevel and plane the edges. So I'm just planing the top there to get rid of that soda ash. And I will bevel all the edges on these just to make them all nice and neat and tidy. So let me just fast forward through that and I'll show you the process of stamping these soaps. And once we've got them all beveled and ready to go, we're going to use cling film or saran wrap, if you're in America, if you will. Now, the purpose of using saran wrap or cling film is when you use your stamps, they often have little bits involved in them. And if the soap is too soft, which this probably is, it's going to leave little bits of your stamp filled with soap. So using the saran wrap, you can get a really nice clean stamp. And I would always recommend going for a hammer when you're stamping. Now this is a jeweler's rawhide hammer. So it's quite a soft hammer. It's not going to break the stamps, but it is going to allow you to get some really nice stamps going on there. I have got a little bit of cling film left in there, but that's no problem. We can just scrape that out, and if you let it set up a little bit, those will come out. It's one of those things that if you have a soft soap, the sharp edges of a stamp may pierce the wrap and you might get little bits left in, but they will come out quite easily. Now, I have the luxury of having a 3D printer, which I've used to make my little stamps here. Not everyone has access to these, so if you did want to do wording on a soap, there are often packs you can get for cake decorating that have slide-in letters, and you could use that instead of these 3D printed stamps. So don't feel you have to have a 3D printer to do this. There are other options that you can use in order to stamp soaps, cake decorating supplies are often good ones to go for. So let's take a look at the final soaps. And here is our final soap. You can really see how those colours are kind of embedded in, and it's just a really nice soap, lovely straight layers, and I'm really pleased with that one. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me grow and it helps me keep making videos for all of you. And if you'd like to get notified when a new video is uploaded, click the bell icon. And until next time, soapsters, have a great time, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.